God bless everybody this wonderful Monday morning. This is Evangelist Langford Stevens III. I am excited this morning to bring a word from the Lord. We had some scheduling issues on yesterday, so we was not able to come to you on yesterday. But today we are still going to bring the word of God on time, every time, as much as possible. Not going to let nothing stop us from bringing the word of God to his people and doing what's best for his people and his will. So today I want to grab a few minutes of your time. We're going to talk about this great man of God that God discovered. Well, God didn't discover, he discovered that he had more in him than what he thought he did, like a lot of us do today. Sometimes God has to remind us or show us through various circumstances that while we are looking for solutions elsewhere, the solution to the problem resides in us as believers during the trying time. So real quick, I want to give honor, of course, to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, to my wife, my family, to all my friends, colleagues. Shout out to Bishop Curtis Jackson and his family and Better Covenant. Shout out to Humble Soldier, Rich and Retired, Chef Tiff, and my mom, my dad in Ohio, my family, Dr. Q, First Lady Mashana, BJ, and all others. Stepmother, Princess, all my family all over. All my friends, Ron in Richmond, T. Newby. I can go on and on. All my friends that I've connected back with growing up, childhood friends, on Facebook. I am enjoying this ride with you guys. We need to look and see. We need to declare today. Can anything good? Come on now, somebody got to talk to. Can anything good come out of Norfolk? Let me get more specific. Can anything good come out of Diggs Park? I represent Diggs Park, Compostela. And as we get into the story today, you're going to realize that it's not where you're from, it's who you know. Oh boy, it's not where you from, it is who you know. So let's turn over to Judges chapter 6 real quick. And I want to read a couple of verses. I'm going to skip around a little bit because I don't have time this morning to read the whole chapter like I would love to. But I want to take out a couple of points, and I want you to look at the situation. As we know, during the course of the Bible, the Israelites had a problem staying consistent with God. Sometimes they believe God and sometimes they don't believe God. God always reminded them he brought them out of Egypt and delivered them out of the hands of the Egyptians and the Pharaoh. But during the course of their journey with God, the Israelites still continued to try God's patience and not have faith in him in critical times. Kind of like some of us. We continue to waver in our faith, waver in our belief, and stray off, only again to come back to our knees to God, asking him to deliver us. So real quick, let's go over here to chapter 6 in the book of Judges. We're going to be talking about this great man of valor called Gideon. A man who took more from himself than he knew he had to offer. And so let's go over here. Let's start at, and I might stop along the way. I'm going to try to get through the whole message as much as possible. But nevertheless, I'm going to drive the point home. I'm going to make sure you grab something from this revelation that I'm trying to give you today. Now, you know, of course, I said the title is "It's not where you're from. It's who you know." It's not. You have to go with confidence. It's not where you're from. It's who you know. Because what? It is in you. power to overcome is in you. All right, chapter 6, verse 1, it says, chapter 6 in Judges says, the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord. So the Lord delivered them into the hand of the Midian, which is the enemy, for 7 years. And the hand of the Midian prevailed against Israel because the Midianites, the children of Israel made for themselves dens, caves, and strongholds, which are in the mountains. So it was, verse 3, whenever Israel had sown, which is sown, or planted, or in there, it planted, sowed crops and all of that. Whenever they did that, it says the Midianites would come up also, and the Amalekites and the people of the east will come against them. So whenever they sowed and tried to grow crops and stuff like that, the enemies of God, came against them. Verse 4 says, then they would encamp against them and destroy the produce of the earth as far as Gaza, and leave no subsistence for Israel, neither sheep, and take the animals as well, nor ox or nor donkey. For they would come up with livestock and their tents, coming in as numerous as locusts. So they had both they and their camels were without number, and they would enter the land and destroy it. Enter the land and destroy it. Verse 6 says, so Israel greatly impoverished because of the Midianites and the children greatly impoverished because of the Midianites, and the children of Israel cried out to the Lord. And it came to pass, verse 7, when the children of Israel cried out to the Lord because of the Midianites, verse 8, the Lord sent a prophet to the children of Israel, who said to them, thus says the Lord God of Israel, I have brought you up out of Egypt and brought you out of the house of bondage, and I delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, and out of the hand of all who oppressed you, and drove them out before you, and gave you their land. And also I said to you, verse 10, I am the Lord your God. Do not fear the gods of the Amorites in the land who you dwell, but you have not obeyed my voice. Now I want to jump down, and this basically the situation that Gideon and his people fell into a situation where they disobeyed God. And God allowed some things to happen and transpire. And God does that in our life to try to, well, not to try, because he's going to win, to turn us back towards his will. Let's go down here to verse 11, because now we're going to get into the substance of who this guy was that God chose to deliver the Israelites out of their current situation. Verse 11 says, then the angel of the Lord came and sat under the tree of Terebinth, the terebinth tree, which was in Ophrah, which belonged to Josh the Abiezrite, while his son Gideon threshed wheat in the winepress in order to hide from the Midianites. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, the Lord is with you, mighty man of valor. And Gideon said to him, O my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why then has all of this happened to us? And where are his miracles which our fathers told us about, saying, did not the Lord bring us out of Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and delivered us into the hands of the Midianites. Then the Lord turned to him come on, and said, go in this might of yours. Oh, I love this part. And you shall save Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Have not I sent you? Oh, I like that verse, because after God told Gideon to go and use what was in him that he did not know was in him, he said, have I not sent you already? Go. Sometimes God got to tell us, hey, go. I already said what I need to say. Once God says it, it's done. You have the confidence that you need in God alone to get the job done. Let me get back to it. So he said to him, oh, my Lord, how can I save Israel? Indeed, my clan is the weakest clan, the weakest in Manasseh. That's where he was from. And I am the least in my father's house. And the Lord said to him, surely I will be with you, and you shall defeat the Midianites as one man. If I can bring a subject title for you today, I want to say, it's not where you're from, it's who you know. Apocalypse, I call it apocalypse, troubles. Troubles in Israel. In times of trouble, God often calls the mightiest servants, you hear me, from places of obscurity, and inspiring them with the assurance of the divine presence. He works through them great deliverances for his people. We call it valor. God calls people, and then he blesses them with his divine presence, and let them know with confidence that they're strong, they're men of valor in him to solve whatever circumstances God needs them to solve. Now, in the midst of strife, one who has Christ has the peace and possess the perfect tranquility within. Now, this chapter begins as the Israelites turned away from God, returning to their evil ways, hear me out, in the sight of God. And because of this, God delivered them into the hands of the Midianites for what? 7 years. The Midianites took everything from Israel, and Israel became greatly impoverished because of the Midianites. God turned the Israelites over to their enemies, to show them what it feels like to disobey God. Now, the Israelites did what they normally do when oppressed. They went crying to God for help. And God sent them, as I said, a prophet who told them that told them what they did and reminded them of all the good works God has done for them. Next, an angel was sent to a man named Gideon. Let's talk about Gideon. Mighty man of valor. Gideon asked the angel, while all the hardship had fallen on Israel, Gideon had some questions. I'm sure some of us have questions when God puts us in a situation or sends us and tells us we can do some things, and the situation in front of us looks impossible to overcome, and we have some questions. Gideon had some questions. The Lord told him to go. Oh no, Gideon asked the angel why all this hardship had fallen on Israel. And the Lord told him to go in all his might and save Israel from the Midianites. The sovereign Lord asked him, the sovereign Lord asked him, and then he told him, I sent you, so go ahead with confidence. He asked him to do a task, and then he sent him. When God asks you to do something, I want you to understand that provisions have already been made, because God is the Alpha and the Omega. He's the beginning and the end. So before, when you are beginning, God is at the ending. Somebody got to talk to me. See, you are just walking out the situation that God has already granted victory for. Somebody got to talk to me today. If you really start to realize that, I'm taking a sidebar, that it's already done. I know we hear church folks say that all the time, but what I'm saying is, you are walking out a life that has already been lived, and God has the details, the roads, the roadblocks, and all the number of trials that you're going to endure to land flat in victory with God's glory and his will completed in your life. What am I saying? You don't know what's in you. One, God knows that. And it's not where you're from, because Gideon said, I'm from the lowest clan in Manasseh, and I'm the lowest least in my father's house. God seems to be attracted to people who have humility and who don't feel worthy, and then he stamps them with worthiness. Come on, somebody got to talk to me. If God sent you, if God sent you, you should go with confidence. Let me say that. Gideon was worried because he was from a poor family within his tribe, Manasseh. And on top of this, he considered himself, like I said, the lowest person in his father's house. You ever consider yourself the lowest person in your family? Yet, in God's eyes, low is high. Come on, somebody gonna catch. Nevertheless, the Lord told him that God was with him, and that it is more than enough. It is more that it is more than enough when God is with him. Somebody need to hear me. When the angel of the Lord said that God is with Gideon to face this problem of these Midianites and all the enemies of God stealing their crops and all their goods, he said that if God is with you, that is more than enough for anybody to come against you. Now, in this chapter, Gideon wanted signs, and some of us want signs. He wanted a sign that he was communicating with the Lord, and he wasn't hearing some strange voices, and he asked the Lord to wait for him to prepare some food. Gideon even went to prepare a sacrifice for the Lord. And the angel jumped into the fire, and then he departed, and Gideon realized that he was in the presence of the Lord's angel. See, he didn't realize he was in the presence of the Lord's angel. He thought he was just he was just so taken back that God seen something in him and sent his messenger to let him know there is more than you than the eye can see. God then directed him to do what to do next. He was commanded to destroy, in the chapter, the platforms of Baal. Because see, during this time, the Israelites they were dwelling in a land that God had given them, the Amorites, and he given them their enemy's land, but they resided in the land, and they start serving the gods of Baal, the land that God gave them, the gods of the people that God gave them. The Israelites start to serve their God. Even Gideon's father was part of that scenario, serving the foreign god. The Bible does not mention that Gideon served Baal with his father and his family. He set up a sacrifice. And God told Gideon, I want you to destroy all those false gods in your father's house and around that city. I want them done with. Gideon went and did it. Then the next day, the Bible said that the people in the city was trying to figure out in Israel, who did all this? Who destroyed all our stuff, our false gods? And it came down to it that the father was not only upset, and the people wasn't no upset, but they had determined, they had figured out that it could have been Gideon. They didn't touch him because they knew, come on, that he was a mighty man of God. But they called him Jeroboam because they said, let Baal, they wanted their God to plead against Gideon, even though he did what God told him to do. First of all, he had to find out that there was more in him than what he thought was in him. Then he found out that God was on his side and he told him to go. Then God gave him some instructions. The first thing I want you to do is destroy all those false gods in your land, starting with your father's house. Then the people come rallying up against him, and they were scared of him because God showed the might in him. Then they gave him a name. Then they put their own curse on Gideon. They said, let Baal contend with, plead against him. And the chapter concludes when Gideon gathered his army. See, because after a while, after God gave him the charge, Gideon had everything he needed, like you and me have everything he needed. He got his army together to getting ready to destroy the Midianites' influences, and God sent him with confidence, and he sent him knowing that I can do all things, come on, with God on my side. I need somebody to know that. My circumstances and where I'm from do not match up with what's in me that God put in me. Need somebody to hear me. When you look at where you're from and the circumstances of your life, like Gideon did. Now, later in the chapter, I can't get into all of it. Gideon asked for some signs, and God showed him some signs and miracles to show him, to what we call, give him a confirmation that he was the one that he chose. Many of us want signs from God. Sometimes God can do whatever he wants to do. He can show you a sign or just tell you go. Either way, his will gonna get done. But we living in a time right now where it is just time to move in confidence. It is in you to do greater works. It is in you to do more than where you are right now. God is passing out assignments all over the earth. And some of the hands of the people that these assignments are landing in don't have the confidence because of where they from, what type of family they came from, background and environment they grew up in. You are the perfect candidate for God to use to bring glory to his name and deliverance to his people. You are. When tough times come, instead of looking at them as God punishing you, you need to see them as a sign of God's gift of grace. God uses tough times, what he do? To get our attention. God purposely turned them over to tough times. He let the Midianites persecute and impoverish the Israelites for 7 years. Sometimes God allows us to go through circumstances for a substantial amount of time to get our attention. I don't know if I have a witness here, but I was kind of hard-headed coming up, and I went through and paid a price for it just to come out where? On top. You have to realize that God sees more in you than what you do. You only see with limitations. God made you. He's looking from the inner out. You looking from outer in. God knows your abilities and your talents. He knows them all the way down to the core. And each time you obey him, you will find that more birthing of gifts and abilities continue to disperse out of your spirit, out of your life, because you have allowed God to take you all the way. God confirms his priorities, what? With his presence. He is with us the whole time. And if you need a confirmation, he will give you one. Gideon needed a personal encounter with God. He just wanted to make sure. Nothing wrong with making sure. But be very clear when you make sure and you find out that God has called you to do this work, you make sure you do what God told you to do. Another thing I want to tell you, that private faithfulness is an opportunity for public usefulness. Gideon can be used publicly, but he had to clean up his own backyard first. A lot of us are being faithful in private. You don't have to, everybody don't need to know that you're being faithful, but God is watching you under that tree of faithfulness. And he's about to show the world the greatness in you, the abilities that your own colleagues and your surroundings and people who know you did not know. I would have never thought that I would be right here. Now, I grew up in church. People used to call me a little church boy back in the day because I was made to go to church, but after church, I went to the big field. Everybody know what I'm talking about. I went down there to see Super Disco at the block party. I hung with the thugs, and I wanted to do what I needed to do. Even though God had other plans, he let me go ahead and be disobedient. I got out there and caused a little trouble. I came up in a time with principles. If you disobeyed a principle or you went against a principle, we had to fight. We ain't had all these guns. We had to do what we needed to do. So we had strength in us. And we had more, the carnal that was in us. God would convert the carnality that's in us to divine spiritual strength. Somebody got to hear me. A lot of us don't understand that our natural abilities and strengths that God gave us, he converts them for his glory and for his will. A lot of us searching for the solution for the problem. The solution was found in the problem. Gideon was in the problem and he was the solution. What am I saying? There are people, you may be thinking you're a part of the problem because you are in the environment of the problem. But God is saying today, you are the solution for the problem if you hear me. Because it's in you. Stop dwelling on where you're from. If you know me, I'm bigger than where you're from. Another thing I found out that if you are not qualified, if you think you're not qualified, that's when you qualify. The minute you think that you can't do it is the minute God tells you you can do it. Humility will hurdle you to the top because you are not, even though you don't know your worth, you're humble enough from your human mentality, from your human wisdom to say, hey, I don't think I have it. And then God stamps you with everything you need. Last, you got to remember that you're not your circumstances. Gideon was not his circumstances. He was dealing with his circumstances the best way he can, trying to prepare against the enemy. But God said, we living in a time now where we just not going to prepare. We're going to conquer the enemy. Because you know me. It's not where you from, it's who you know. So I'm encouraging some folks today. It's a lot of Gideons around here. They came from backgrounds that's not so squeaky clean. And God is going to raise you up and show not only your local people, He's going to show the world the greatness that He can bring out of low, humble places. I know this. I believe I'm great because God believes I'm great. I don't need validation from men. I need validation from God. And He has shown me enough where I don't have to wait for somebody to tell me. I'm not saying that being cocky. I'm just saying that God showed me that I can make an impact in people's lives. And so that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in confidence and preach this gospel and help deliver some souls and just help people be critical thinkers and change their lives and go on and help others. I am going to do that. I'm determined to do that while I'm living on this earth. It don't have nothing to do with where I come from, over in Norfolk, Digstown. It don't have nothing to do with that. I'm here. Yes, I love my hometown people, but I came from out of you guys. And I'm going to do the will of God, and I'm going to make sure that we are known for blessing folks over here in Norfolk. Oh, yeah. And all over the world. We are not our circumstances. We are not a product of our environment. We are the solution to the problem. Trust God. Because He knows what's in you. I'm just meditating because God is so good. Every single problem that we ever, circumstance that we ever got in, God delivered us from it. And I need somebody to get up and say, it's time for me to do it. It's time for me to go for it. It's time for me to run with the confidence of Gideon. I don't care where I'm from, it's who I know. We're going to give God praise for that. And move and accomplish things that you thought your mind can't even conceive. The things that God's going to allow you to accomplish this year. You watch what I tell you.